forget. Alrighty, tonight we're going to be recapping and going over everything you need to know about macros. Now, if you're on the 8-week challenge, we have posted some videos about each macronutrient so far, except alcohol. We're going to cover alcohol tonight. It isn't a macronutrient, yes. And tonight is hopefully answer all your questions and explain more in depth about how to handle macronutrients when it comes to your goals and all that kind of thing too. Of course, at any point, please hop in the chat box and write down any questions that you might have, just in case we haven't answered it, to make sure that we cover everything. Why are you looking at me like that?
You have beautiful eyes.
Thank you, Matt. You often say they're poo drops.
It's the color.
That's love, isn't it? All right, I am actually going to share my screen. Let's see if I can work this out.
Remember last time you tried doing this? All those things were coming up that were meant to come up.
Hush now, Matthew Dean. All right, let's go into this mode. All right, can you guys see just what are macros? Excellent. Amazing. We've got the first slide. How good is that? What are macros? Well, this is again just a brief recap on what we've discussed in the videos over the last 2 weeks. But what we need to make sure we get first and foremost is that your magic number is always priority. Aside from anything else, whether you eat all fat, all carb, all protein, doesn't matter. Your number is the priority here. Macros come in second tier, okay? Really, really important. I'm not sure if we've stressed that enough. Your magic number is first and foremost the most important. The magic number, your weight, you guys have already worked this one out if you're on the challenge, but it's your body weight in kilograms times by 2.2, and then you either times it by 11 for rapid fat loss or times by 12 for steady fat loss. Or you times that number by 15 for your maintenance numbers, which happen after our 8 to 12 block of cutting. Yeah,
like it.
Cool. Yeah, we can skip past that next bit. All right, so the macros. What are macros? Macros is the short term for macronutrients. Now, that is what our food composition is made up of. So anything that you consume into your mouth is either one or a combination of fats, protein, carbohydrates, or alcohol. Now, alcohol is a macronutrient, yes. Talk to us about alcohol, Maxine.
Preach. We'll get into that a little bit later.
We'll do that one next.
A slide about it. So can I just go back to the macros? Sorry. Now, so this is your integral. So remember that you've got number one priority is the magical number. And then that magical number is made up of macros. It's like the next layer down. So this is getting a bit more in depth. And there's actually one below that one, which is called micros, which is all the things that the macros possess. So fiber, iron, and all those bits and pieces. So there's the magical number, calories, always priority. That's bare ass minimum. We call it BAMs. Bare ass minimum is you want to always hit that number. When you get into the nitty gritty and you want to fine tune it, then you start to look at macros. And then once you get your head around macros, you can actually go finer again and look into all the micros. So we're focusing only today on the macros, not the micros, but I just wanted to make sure that you know there's another level again. This is just the in-depth understanding of, so you can have a clearer understanding of why sometimes when, even though you're hitting your macros, you may not be tightening up as firm as you would like to be. And quite often when we look at your macros, we can sort of figure out that maybe the balance isn't quite right. Maybe it's too high in fat. Maybe we need to tweak some things. That's what we're going to get into.
This is really how to target. So if you're an archery shooter, how you get the bullseye, not just hit the target.
The target comes to you.
Here's mine. I'm going to start writing a book on all my analogies.
I like it.
Yeah, I think that'd be a bestseller.
We could even hide it and see if people could ever find it. And if they do, it was meant to be.
It'll be next to your memoirs you're writing. So the reason why we then look at your macronutrients is because first and foremost, we want, after hitting your magic number, we want you to achieve balance. Now, balance is a bit of a broad term, but we want you to be able to enjoy life. If we just said you can only eat carbohydrates or you can only eat fat, that kind of limits you and it doesn't really give you a lot of options. If you're on a fat only diet and I invite you out to my favorite Italian restaurant. It's probably not going to happen, is it? So it's all about how do you make sure you're getting everything that you need, because fats, proteins, and carbs, they're there because our body actually needs them, and they're all contain things that our body can't produce itself. So we need to make sure we're getting a really good balance of them so that we can be the healthiest, fittest, and strongest version of ourselves.
And the world that we live in now is filled with carbohydrates, it's filled with fats, it's filled with alcohol, and it's filled with protein. So if you only ever streamlined in one area, it's not very fun. Like Sheridan said, if you get invited out for dinner and she goes, hey, let's go to Italian, and you're only eating fats and proteins, and you go to a pasta-based restaurant, like an Italian joint generally is with pastas and pizzas, all of a sudden you've ruled out the ability to be able to enjoy the evening because you've now got to find a way around the situation. So it's there to be enjoyed if you like Italian, for the sake of this example. If you don't like Italian, that'd be a stupid example. But we're going on this assumption that you do like it. We don't want you to miss out.
Or you're like me and you would actually take me out on my dinner invite.
Yeah, but remember that the idea is that you enjoy the food, not be afraid of food, not hide from it, not be, oh, I can't have that because it doesn't, because it's not good for me or whatever it is. That's just the wrong language. So if we can shift the language, focus on finding a clean balance of all these macros to have it really dialed in so that you can enjoy all foods and just plan accordingly for those foods.
Because as long as you're in a deficit, anything will work. Whether it's high fat, high protein, high carb, it doesn't matter. As long as it's in a deficit, it will work. However, it's a very aggressive approach, and too much of anything is not a good thing. And like we said, we need you to get everything that your body needs, not just one thing.
Yeah.
Because carbohydrates contain stuff that fats and proteins don't contain. So it's really important that you do get a good, healthy balance so that you can give your body everything that it needs. Cool?
Exactly.
Excellent. Let's move on. Food is meant to be enjoyed, just like Kit Kat Chunkies. So good.
Again, if you like Kit Kat Chunkies. All right.
If you haven't tried one, I highly recommend it.
So always remember that food is your food that you like is totally different to, I guarantee, what Sheridan likes, because she likes some random stuff. And that's okay, because I like different things to what she likes. And that's what makes it my life, my body, my choices. I don't have to please what Sheridan's eating. And if I don't like what she's eating, I just won't eat what she's eating. I'm going to make what I want, which is best for me, or I'll get Sheridan to make it for me. Either way, it works.
And even if you like, say, for example, if you like the way my body looks, just because even if you just ate what I ate, it might not necessarily work for you anyway. So it's not like I am on the winning formula or I'm not on the winning formula. It's just we have to make tweaks and adjustments to what works for you.
Yeah. And so what you could say to that, Sheridan, add on top of that, is that you are on the winning formula because you have a control of your magical number.
I am.
Your food, on the other hand, may not appeal to a lot of people if they saw exactly what you ate. Yeah. So even though you see and go, oh, that's an amazing body, she's very fit, she's very strong, she does all those things, it's because she's able to hit that magical number 9 times out of 10. She'll be pretty much there, with every now and then a blowout because the day got out of control and she thinks, stuff it. I've come this far. I'm going in deep.
And sometimes a packet of chips, an ice cream, and a chocolate bar on the couch is needed for mental health. I'm human. So the things you need to know about the macros. First and foremost, carbohydrates. Now, I feel sorry for these buggers because they get a bad rap.
They really do.
They really are not going to make you fat. Carbs are your friend, because what are carbs? First of all, your fruits and your veggies, they're all carbohydrates, not just your pastas, your rices, your breads and stuff like that. So when people say to me, I'm cutting carbs, I get heartbroken, because what about the poor vegetables and the fruits that you're dissing in that statement?
Yep.
They've done nothing to you and you need them.
And then they quickly realized that they didn't realize that carbs were fruits and vegetables. They assume carbs are breads and pastas and all those things that are deemed bad. They're not bad. Too much of any one thing is bad. Carbohydrates are great because they're a really instant amount of energy that gets converted straight away really quickly. It's what makes it so good. That's why it's important to have a large amount of carbohydrates in your body. There's just certain carbs that spike you really quickly, and there's certain carbs that sort of trickle to you all through the day. So that's the benefits of pros and cons of when you.
The example is giving kids red lollies versus giving them apples. Red lollies, you're going to see a spike in energy. apples, a little bit more gradual energy. But carbohydrate, it is your body's primary source of energy. It's your body's preferred source of energy. So whatever you eat, your body uses the carbohydrates first as your energy source. Fun fact.
And a really cool thing on that there too is, and I think if you've watched the video already, I'm pretty sure we talked about it, but if I had 100 grams of lollies, which is pure carbohydrates, because all glucose is sugar, and I had 100 grams of apples in carbohydrate form, the exact same amount of carbohydrates, inside my body, they're exactly the same. They're the same amount of energy. There's no difference to the two. The only difference between the two is that the apple comes with benefits. Okay, so the carbohydrates, be it lollies, be it bread, be it whatever, if they were the same amount of carbs and I had that in my body from an energy point of view, it is the same thing, regardless of what it is. So that's when people go, oh, carbs aren't bad because vegetables are good, but the difference is 100 grams of carbohydrates from vegetables is a larger amount than 100 grams of sugar, which is a smaller amount. So the difference is volume changes when you go pure, clean and green. You get all the benefits, but your volume increases as well. So they're really, really quite cool. But your body can only hold at any one time 450 grams of carbohydrates. And what that means is that once that store is full, you can overflow the store, but basically, put my hands in the shot there, because it's natural energy, everything you do, carbohydrates wins every time. Doesn't matter if you're a keto person, the moment a carb comes in, it takes preference over keto every time. So what you need to know is that when you have the carbohydrates, it's constantly burning energy because everything, even sitting right now, we need energy to do that. So it may not be burning at a high frequency as if I went for a run, but eventually that carbohydrate store comes down and down and down, and then we usually eat till we top it up again, and then it comes down. And it constantly does this all day. And eventually it'll be empty.
It's like your petrol tank.
And when it gets empty, it's when you feel lethargic, you hit a wall, you get tired in the afternoon. It's because the carb cells are low. Now, what happens is you're now transferring over to what we call ketosis, which is actually over to the body, the other side, which is the ability to burn fat. So what happens is when they're empty, there'll be this transitional phase where it's trying to shift over. Now, when it shifts over, it's kind of like a bit of a hangover. It's not a nice process. It takes time, it takes energy, but you don't have any energy left to convert it. So it's a process that's drawn out, which is usually when we go, man, I'm hungry, and we have a treat, boom, and we fill that carbohydrate store up really quickly. So the idea is that you get a balance of that stuff there. You get yourself super fit so that you can burn between the two, fat and carbohydrates, from an energy point of view.
Yes.
Woo.
Ooh, good work. So carbs carry your essential vitamins and nutrients, like things like your fibers, your brain
antioxidants, phytochemicals, iron, all bits and pieces like that. There's lots of things hidden in veggies.
Yeah. So really, really important. Carbs are your friend. 1 gram of carbs is 4.5 calories. Now, before I move off the carbohydrates, Kim's asked a question. Wonder about the timing of eating carbs. Question. Does it make a difference if you're eating for dinner versus earlier in the day? And is there a preference?
You should only eat carbs at 1 p.m. That's it. Anything either side, 1 minute either side.
Not 101. You are screwed.
No, there's literally no difference. It's your preference in that thing there. So I know there was a big thing done a while ago. Don't eat carbs after 8. That was a big buzzword going around in the health and fitness industry. Sorry about that. It's just stupidity. It would only work for you if you were eating through the night and you need to just stop that. Then stopping at 8 is a good idea. But the reality is that as long as you hit your magical number, regardless of what that is, it really doesn't matter when you have the carbs day and night. Typically, though, if you've got a busy day ahead and it's very laborious and it's very like that, you probably want to make sure your carbs are really high and stored, really up and full, so that you can have the energy for the activity. If you're having a very sedentary day, then you do the opposite. You could just trickle them throughout the day.
So timing of your carbohydrates can be used to your advantage for the energy purposes. But from a fat loss, weight loss, and goals perspective, it honestly doesn't matter. There's been research showing that if you hit your magical number, it doesn't matter whether you eat that food over little bits and pieces, 3 meals, 6 meals, all in one go. It does not matter, and time of day does not affect your results whatsoever. It's just hitting your magical number. But you can use carbohydrates to your advantage when it comes to, if you're about to do a workout, carbohydrates are your primary energy store. So if you eat something before a workout, your best choice would be to go to carbohydrates, so you've got the energy to perform at your best whilst you're working out. Me personally, I can't eat probably at least 2 hours before my workout. I'm better doing it on an empty stomach rather than having anything in there. That's just how I operate best. But you might be different. Some people need to have something in their stomach beforehand. If you are one of those people, choose a carbohydrate.
So today, when I had my PT session with T-Pop, I got up and I was real lethargic this afternoon coming into the gym. And so I went in and I grabbed 2 chocolate koala bears, caramel koala, what's that called?
Caramello
koala bears. I grabbed 2 of those, smashed those back.
They're just caramello koalas.
All good. I smashed 2 of those and then I had a coffee because my energy was so low. Now the sugar came in really quickly, which allowed me to use that energy very fast because it's a quick, rapid bit of energy. It doesn't take 30 minutes to kick in. It's more like it gets into the system very fast and it gives you a blessing very quickly. And I needed a quick pick me up because I entered really late into the session, like right on time. So it meant that I needed something to change quickly. So I went for the highest sugary thing I could find, which was those koalas.
Thank you to the Browns for giving us an excess of chocolates on hand. I've had 2.
I had 2 before PT. But again, I did it for the reason of energy. I needed it for my lift session and had a great session because of it.
Yeah.
Cool.
One last thing, carbs are stored in your muscles. And I had something else to say on that. It'll come back to me. Mustn't have been very important. Protein. All right, this 1 gram of protein is 4.5 calories as well, same as your carbohydrates. Now, your protein is responsible for the repair of your muscles, skin, hair, nails. Excess protein will not make you bulky and that real big gym muscle head guy looking person in a gym. That's them overeating or on steroids, mainly on steroids. But excess protein, literally, you just poo it out. There's no storing it. There's no going to town with it. It literally just comes out your poo. So
very simple.
Very, very simple.
Proteins are found in, obviously, the richest source of protein is generally in meat. That is the highest source of protein, fish, that sort of stuff. They're very rich in protein, but also vegetables and fruits have some portion, not all, but some have a degree of protein.
Nuts and seeds, tofu, dairy, eggs, etc. They all contain protein.
You just have to choose what's right for you. Now, the challenge, I said this in the video the other day if you didn't hear it, but the challenge is if you are a vegan, it's hard to find high sources of protein through vegetables. They're very minimal. So it means you have to largely eat, which has a challenge when you're trying to find balance because you have to overeat the vegetables to try and bring up the protein. That's the challenge there. So you need to find most likely a substitute for that or something that's going to assist you, be it a protein powder if that's what you're looking for, a vegetarian, a vegan one, something like that.
We get asked about protein powders all the time. Now, we do not promote supplements and things like that at all. Reason being is because we believe in getting the stuff from the food from the ground and the earth and getting it in its most natural state. Now, the only time that you would look at adding in a protein powder into your diet is if you really are struggling to be able to hit anywhere near your protein goals. But for your fitness and health goals and achieving what you're trying to achieve, of course, protein powders are not essential to your success. We personally don't take them. However, if I was still vegan, I would probably look at taking a pea protein or something like that just to make sure I'm getting enough so I am replenishing my muscles for the level of activity I do. But it's 100% not a start out, you must have this. It's only if you need it. I need that, sorry. It's only if you need it. To top up your stores. How much protein do you need? 1 to 2 grams per kilogram of body weight. If you're an athlete, then you have more, but none of us are in that state. We only need 1 to 2. Cool. Fat town, baby.
So fat is the one that probably is the one you really want to be able to take the most attention to, because the reason for that is that fat is already in its form in which it hits your body. It's already in the cell of fat, meaning that it doesn't take much to break down in your body to go to the fat cells, because fats only store in fat cells. It doesn't change. It doesn't do anything different. So what you need to know is that when you do have any form, good or bad, it comes in and it's easily just able to slip on into fat town. That's what we keep talking about. It just packs in there and it keeps packing in. So if you don't pay attention to that macro, that is what can catch you out. That's when you can be going, I don't get it. I'm still quite chubby, or I'm still feel squidgy, or I'm still feel thin. It's because generally, if we look at your macros, we actually took a look at them, you might find that your fat cells are quite high, meaning that regardless of, remember, anytime you eat a carbohydrate, it takes over and then it will shift over to the fat eventually. So if it's a high fat diet, very low carbohydrates, it's going to store and pack it in and make these little fat cells fill up, and they have the ability to multiply. We've got billions of them in our body, and they have the ability to multiply billions of times.
Yeah, you literally have an unlimited amount of fat cells in your body. Not like the protein, which you poo out. You do not poo out fat. It just packs in, baby. Yep. Good fats versus bad fats. Now, it's the same discussion as, the Mars bar and the apple, the good carb versus the bad carb. The same deal applies. They're both fat, just the what's considered a good fat comes with the added benefits.
Yep. Perfect. Easy.
Cool.
Great way to do it. Now, one of the hidden things here, which is one that catches a lot of people out, because everyone's told that nuts are so good for you and you should have those and they're easy. And people grab handfuls of them and just chomp them and don't even think about counting them. They are one of the highest calorie form foods you'll find around for the size to the caloric value.
One almond is 9 calories, and whoever eats just one.
Exactly. Peanuts are worse. Like, it just is crazy when you pay attention to them. So if you are having nuts and you do like them, there's nothing wrong with having them. The challenge is you have to count them, because you need to be disciplined enough to know that it is 9 calories for one almond and you only have, call it 100 calories left. You can't have any more than 10, where you could have 11, I suppose, but that's it. You'd be tapped out after 11, which is not a full handful. It's actually quite a small amount. So the reality is that if you don't count them, that your body will count them for you. And they're the things that catch people out. They
smashed avo. If you go out for breakfast, those things are piled high with avocado. And although it might seem like a healthy option, and 100% there's health to it for sure, but remember, too much of anything is not a good thing. And a shit ton of avocado, probably not going to help you get to where you need to get to with your goals. However, a smearing just like butter over on toast with your avocado is great. We don't need it to be piled, 2 inches thick.
Yeah.
1 gram of fat, is 9 calories. So remembering protein and carbs are 4.5 calories. This is literally, you can have half the amount of food when you're eating fat, because it's so much higher in caloric value. Cool. Now the whole, muscle weighs more than fat. It doesn't. 2 kilos of muscle is the same as 2 kilos of fat. They're both 2 kilos. However, the difference being is fat has a bigger mass and muscle is more lean and dense. So your muscle 2 kilograms of muscle might be this big, and 2 kilograms of fat might be this big. So get off the scales.
Scales, as I was going to say, this is why scales are stupid, because they don't register mass change. They only register weight change. So the reality is that, like Sheridan said, is a muscle is sexy. It's lean. It's very tight, which is why when females first start at the gym, they have this misconception that when they come into the gym, they're going to get jacked by lifting weights. So they're really afraid to lift weights when they first start. Most men come in wanting to get jacked, and they want the opposite effect. They want to try and be big and muscly, whatever it is. The reality is that your makeup is your makeup. It doesn't change unless it's assisted by and accompanied by lots of resistance, aka steroids or something like that. That's how you get big and jacked. But unfortunately, our little brains, which are amazing, have the ability to remember an exaggerated picture. They don't remember the person right in front of them talking to them. They only remember the magazine that saw on the store one time, and the lady was on there and she was so chiseled that her veins are coming out her neck and her eyes are popping out her head. Her biceps are bigger than quads, all that sort of stuff. That you remember that picture, and then you associate weights to being like that. That's not the case. That's steroids get you that. So the challenge is that a lot of females have a hang up on lifting weights gets their muscles big and bulky. That's not what muscles are. They're sleek and they're lean and they're very cool. Fat is clumpy. It's awful. It's lard-like. Look at it. It looks like crap. It's like so bad. And that's the challenge with it, is it doesn't sit nicely. When you strip back the fat, that muscle is looking in there really nice and lean, and then all of a sudden that comes through. But on top, unfortunately, my arm right there, is fat sits on top, which creates a lumpy effect, or cellulite, as people see, because it's not a smooth substance. And you can't pack it down to make it smooth like Play-Doh. It literally is what it is. it's fat, it's clumpy, it's large.
And now I quickly want to address, there's a bit of a movement going on at the moment at healthy at any size. Now, this is true to a degree. However, if we have excess fat in our bodies, you're putting your organs under stress. So there's two types of fat in our body. There's subcutaneous fat and there's visceral fat. Subcutaneous fat is the squidgy stuff on top. It's soft, you can see it, etc. Visceral fat is the fat that surrounds your organs. Now, if you've ever seen an older man generally, and they've got like a big gut, but it's solid, like it's big, but it looks like it's tight. It looks like muscle because it's so tight. That's visceral fat. What's happening there is there's so much fat surrounding that man's organs that it's actually pushing the abs out. So it is actually his abs out there, but it's only out that far because there's so much fat around his organs. Now, that's like 10 people playing stacks on top of me and me trying to breathe. I'm going to find it a little bit difficult to breathe with 10 people playing stacks on top of me. So you want to give your organs the best chance possible by not smothering them and having as little visceral fat around our organs as possible. So healthy at any size, it's a little bit of a misconception there. However, fit at every size is very important.
Yeah, 100% that one. And I feel like the other one is the latter. It's the easier option of the two. I could be big and go, it's okay, because it's okay to be big and it's okay. And because everyone else is saying it's okay and social media says it's okay. So you start justifying your weight being like, even though you're not happy because your energy's lower, you're not able to do the things you want to do, you can't play with your kids, you can't fit the clothes you want to fit, you can't do the things you want to do because of those things that hold you back. But because there's a movement saying it's okay, people jump on that bandwagon because it's easier to side with that than to take the other approach, which is to get yourself as fit as possible. Byproduct of fitness is weight loss, but fit as possible allows you to do the things you want to do when you want to do, not because you can't, but because you choose not to, is the only difference. So if you had a focus of getting fit, the byproducts are amazing once you're fit. So the bigger, what is the movement called?
Healthy at any size.
Healthy at any size. It should be fit at every size. That's what the movement should be. I want to be fit at every size. It doesn't matter if I'm overweight. I'm going to be a fit, overweight person. And as I get fitter, that weight will come down. That should be the movement.
Because remember, people take the easy road and whatever's easiest, and it's easier to be fat than it is to be fit.
It really is.
Yeah. All right, cool. The macros. If you're using MyFitnessPal, this symbol should be you would have seen it before. What balance of macros should you have? All right, if you've got a pen here, I don't actually have this typed up for you to look at, but your macro ratio for your carbohydrates, anywhere from 30 to 50% of your daily diet. Your protein, 20 to 40%, and your fat, 20 to 30%. Now, for me personally, I chase about 50% carbs, 30% protein, 20% fat. Now, remembering my first priority is hitting my number. Then my second priority comes in at tweaking my macros so that I'm not too high in fat, because I want a lean body and I want to be healthy, fit, and strong. Now, when we say 30 to 50% carbs, you got to work out what works best for you. I personally function better off a higher carb diet, whereas Matt is better off not as many carbs as me. So it really comes down to personal preference. But if you maybe start at the 50, 30, 20 and then tweak it from there. Now, the reality of me hitting those percentages every day is slim to none, but it's my target. It's so that if I've got calories left over, or if I'm planning my day and I really want to make a focus on my macros, I can then make decisions based off where my macro wheel is sitting and my ratios. So if I've got 200 calories left for the day, but my fat percent ratio is up quite high, I'm going to look for something that's not fat based. So maybe I'll have some fruit, that kind of thing, and bump up my carbs, or whatever it might be. So that's how you can attack that. Now, how do you plan for your macros in your day? All right, and again, I'm going to harp on about this, but your first priority is your numbers. If you're not hitting your numbers, don't even look at the macros. They come in once your numbers are being hit, because hitting your macros but blowing out your numbers is not going to get you the results. However, hitting your numbers and then fine-tuning your macros will get you your results. Whether you get to the macros or not, doesn't matter. Your number is first priority. So what I recommend you do is start with your normal day. Now, most of us are creatures of habit. We eat the same, relatively the same, most days, almost weeks, whatever it might be. So start with what you generally eat, always starting with your non-negotiables. And then you want to make tweaks from there. I don't want you to start off and go, all right, I need 20 grams of fat here. How am I going to get that? That's going to make it too hard. So start with what you've currently got and tweak from there. Then I would put to tweak it, I would put your first focus on the protein. Protein is one of the hardest ones to make sure you're getting in your diet. And protein is more times than not accompanied by fat. So that's going to bump up your fat intake as well. Carbs, super easy to get in. Have an apple, have a peach, whatever it might be, and you've got your carb stores up with very, very minimal protein or fat coming into that as well. But that's really how I would suggest you attack it. But I don't want you to start from scratch and look at numbers and grams and, trying to work out what are my high protein foods and all that kind of thing. However, if your protein wheel is low, then we do have a high protein foods document. I'm pretty sure it was in the nutrition plan, where you can look at the foods that are more higher in protein, so you can potentially add those into your day. So, subbing out, I don't know where I was going with that.
All right. So, like Sheridan was saying, the easiest way to do it is to start with those things that you love. So example is, Sheridan makes me overnight oats that I have each morning. So I know that each morning I'm starting my day with those overnight oats, and they come to about 400 calories, I think it is. And I know that my daily number is already subtracted by that one. I know that just if I enter only those oats in the wheel, I can see what the split is of fats, carbs, and proteins in that actual meal. So I can get an idea of going, cool, that meal is predominantly carbohydrates. It does have an element of fat, and it does have a minor element of protein. So I get this balance starting really early off one meal. So I can look at that there. So I know that I have that each morning. I have to subtract that. So before anything else goes into my diary, that's a non-negotiable. That's what I'm having each morning. That goes in there. If there's a sweet treat I like to have in the afternoon, I need to make sure that's in there too. Because those things that are usually one-off treats and bits and pieces like that, they're generally, for most people, on the higher side of fat, or they'll come with some form of extra thing that's not usually accounted for if they were doing something healthy. So that has to go in there, and then everything else works around it. So non-negotiables, or things you always eat. If you always have a sandwich for lunch, one of our members we know every day has a roll, he doesn't do meat. He has a roll every day with veggies and stuff on it. And it's the same thing every day. That's easy to calculate because he has it every day. And it's okay to have that thing every day if you love it. Don't have it if you don't. That's the key. But make sure you put those things in first. Then you work everything else around it. And the numbers fill up very fast, I promise you.
I don't know if we can be able to see this, probably not. So if you go into your diary in MyFitnessPal, and then you tap the numbers at the top where it's got what your target is and what you've eaten, it'll come up with your macro wheel. We want you to focus more so on the wheel to start with rather than the grams. And then you can go from there. Now, I told you before that my target is 50% carbs, 30% protein, and 20% fat. This day, 53% carbs, 27% fat, 20% protein. So I did not hit it, no, but it's just so you know that that's what I'm aiming for. And then the next day I will try to do better, particularly with my fat wheel. I did not. It increased to 35% fat. And then today is the worst one yet. I don't think it's actually calculated correctly. I think I've chosen the wrong thing when I've added into my diary, but it's saying I'm currently at 52% fat for the day. Not a good day. However, I'm under my calories. So not a loss, because remember first priority is hitting your numbers.
Yep.
Cool. And then to tweak it, if I'm a little bit flabby and I don't know why, then I can look back at my macros and go, I probably need to tighten up and cut out those higher fatty foods or go for a leaner option.
Awesome. Now, to wrap up the last part of this thing, because we are over time, we do apologize. Waffling on. What we need to talk about is alcohol, because that's the one thing we haven't spoken about. Now, 1 gram of alcohol is 7 calories. So we know that carbohydrates and protein, 1 gram is 4.5 calories. We know that 1 gram of fat is 9 calories. And now we know that 1 gram of alcohol is 7 calories. Now, here's where alcohol gets tricky. So you have to put the alcohol in, because when alcohol enters your system, generally it is accompanied by some form of carbohydrate as well, which is why you need to calculate it. I know that a glass of wine is typically about 100 calories, and that consists of a portion of alcohol and a portion of generally carbohydrates, and there may be some form of protein in there. It'd be very minuscule, but it is in there. So what happens then is that when the alcohol enters our body, this is where it gets a little tricky, is it's a foreign toxin, okay? The body only wants carbs, fats, and proteins. That's all it wants in there. It doesn't want alcohol in there. However, because alcohol goes into your body, it registers as a toxin, which means that it needs to get it out of your body, which means that the process of burning fat and keeping you healthy, fit, and strong slows down, because the body has to direct its energy to burning off or oxidizing off the alcohol that's in your body. So it's really quite cool. That's why when you have the alcohol and you had a few bevies, you start feeling really good and chipper, and you feel like, come at me, I'm feeling good, because alcohol is giving you, the body's giving you energy to burn it off. However, the process of all the food and stuff, it's not breaking down for you. So you're actually oxidizing it, and it's like running on fuel, and it's burning really hot, which is why you feel really good on the day. And then the very next day, you usually have a hangover, you feel lethargic, because your body was burning at a really rapid rate that you couldn't keep up with. And in that process, you would have probably ate something, what do you have at night time? Kebabs? What do you call them?
Yeah, kebab.
The kebab. You have a kebab at night time, you smash that down. You didn't even realize that it was 2,400 calories for one of those bad boys. It doesn't matter. I've had a few drinks. All of a sudden, you smash that down, and you haven't
soak up the alcohol.
Soak up the alcohol, feel better tomorrow. You don't feel better tomorrow, because now you have 2,400 calories in one meal go into your body that you can't burn off quick enough. Plus, you feel tired from the alcohol, and then hence a hangover comes in. And then what do you do the next day? You usually go, I'll start on Monday. I'm going to go have some Macca's for breakfast. And you go make that bad decision, which again, it's a high calorie fatty meal, which stacks in there again on top of your kebab you had last night, plus all the drinks, plus the food that didn't get time to burn off because you're on the piss. Easy peasy.
I think that covers pretty much everything that you really need to know about macros. But first priority is your number. Don't even worry about macros until you're hitting your number consistently. Yeah. So only once it's consistent, then you can add in the macros.
And what would be consistent? Simple. If you can do it for 2 weeks straight and you hit your numbers relatively close within a few, 50 grams or 50 calories kind of thing, 50 to 100, and you're pretty much there all the time, and you can do that for 2 weeks, then you're ready to take the next step, which is you're not worried about not being able to hit them or undershooting them or overshooting them. You're ready to look at macros a little bit better. Or I would just focus, if this is your first challenge with us, focus on just doing numbers this one. Don't even worry about macros. Don't dive into that well, because can be confusing. You can get disheartened because you're not hitting the numbers all the time. Just hit the magic number for this challenge. And then in the next challenge, dive in again, which a lot of our guys have done. They start to fine tune everything, and they start to seek out the understanding of the macros, because they've got the numbers. They're still doing it even in between the challenges. They do the next one. Then when they dive into macros, they have even better results in the second one or the third one that they've done. So that would be the key to it.
And just so you know, please reach out if you're struggling at all, or if you need help in just fine tuning. It was really awesome. Last night, I actually got to sit down with Stace and Glenn and just look at their food and see how we could tweak it to make sure they're feeling fuller for longer, and also making sure that they do keep staying with under the numbers, because they're great at doing that. And I just gave like one little tweak and suggestion that they're going to try for the next week. So if you are struggling at all, please reach out. That's what we're here for. Yeah. And we'd love to help you. But if anyone has any questions, speak now. now or forever hold your peace, or you could just reach out to us like I just offered. But if that's all, we are going to wrap it up so you guys can go back to your families and doing what you need to do. If you have any questions, again, please reach out at any time. Next week, Dino is going to be taking over IQ session again for number 50. And then number 51 will be with Liam about how to avoid common gym injuries and how to warm up for them and all that kind of stuff too. So you guys rock. Mwah. Thank you so much. Have a sensational evening. We will see you when we're looking at you. Be good. Ciao for now.